doesn't want to go above 900. He's currently paying 840.
How much negative does he have roughly?
From my math, 9.
What's the car?
You'll see.
White, black interior, driver assist nav. I'm gonna take out the brakes. Car shouldn't need brakes.
Okay.
Let me put it to you this way. He most definitely doesn't need to put brakes on it.
Right.
We potentially could
Right.
in order to certify it, depending on where they measure. All right, so 29.3 on the trade. What's his payoff?
38,940. He's leasing though.
He's in a lease.
Yes.
Oh, good. That actually helps us. If we go lease to lease, we can get that payoff reduced.
He's paying 867.60 a month times 3. Subtract that from 38, correct? That easier?
No, so you don't do that because the payoff, which any dealer, any person could pay the car off today for that number, includes a early payment penalty,
Gotcha.
like a prepayment penalty, which is built into a lease. We can get around that if we're taking it in towards another lease.
Okay.
So the way that you would calculate the math is a little different. I'll print this out and walk you through it just so that you can become familiar with it. Our screen here a little bit. If somebody wants to trade out of a lease early, they have a couple of different options. Here's the payoff, right? Now anybody can make this payoff. You appraise the car, you compare it against that, that's negative equity. What this includes is your residual value plus all of your remaining payments, which you would find on the balance to maturity. That's 9 payments times the payment amount. But you add those two together and it's going to be lower than this number. And that difference is the early payment penalty. So you could do it this way. You could just trade the car in against payoff. Or you could look at balance to maturity. Okay, so in this scenario, our trade of $29,300, we've got about $9,500 in negative equity. His balance to maturity, let's say he was at a BMW dealership, is $8,400. And what balance to maturity means is just how many payments do you have left plus a turn-in fee. That would bring the account to maturity. So in this scenario, actually, this number is $1,000 less. Third option that we have, and only a Mercedes-Benz dealer can do this, we can use LAP, which waives 3 payments, right? So now we go from 9 remaining payments to 6 remaining payments. You open up your calculator, please. And by the way, always double check on this because if they live in a state with monthly sales tax, you'll see base payment and monthly sales tax.
Okay.
You have to add those two together
Okay.
to get the actual payment. So first let's add that. Now we're going to multiply that by the number of payments are not covered by LAP,
So 6.
right?
Right.
So that's 52,111. So if we were just going lease to lease, so this is option number 3. If he's going into a new Mercedes-Benz lease, we can waive 3 payments, we can waive the turn-in fee, that's what would be left over. So now we're getting better and better. We went from 9 grand in negative to 84.52 in negative, now we're down to 52.11 in negative.
Okay.
But here's where we can sometimes get even better than that, is you take the remaining payments not covered by LAP, you add them to this residual number here, if you do that math quickly.
36.54.
So this would be payoff if we were taking the car in as a lease return trade. So you can see it's $2,900 better
Right.
than the payoff to any other dealer. However, the gap between our trade value and this number here is still, what, $7,300? So this ends up being our best option. If he wants to go into a new lease, instead of having $9,500 in negative equity or $8,500 in negative equity that he would have best case scenario at another dealership, unless somebody was going to appraise it for like 34, 35 grand, which there's no way.
Right.
Just his remaining payments not covered by LAP end up being the least expensive option.
So then that's the equity that we roll into the next.
Exactly. The point of all this is that when you've got somebody that's currently in a Mercedes lease now, we know we're not going to be looking at this number. There's one scenario where you would look at this payoff amount. So that would be the best case scenario. Do you know what it is?
Going into finance?
It's not going into a finance. They can still use LAP into a Mercedes-Benz finance. If somebody has severely damaged their car or has gone way over miles, one thing that you cannot get away from, even if we do this route, we're treating the car like a lease return. We're not going to be buying it, right? Because we've just done the math and there's no way for us to buy it and be better than that. But if somebody was way over miles on a car, for example, if they're turning their lease back in, they're going to get a bill for the miles.
Right.
And it's going to get inspected. So if the car is in bad shape, maybe the tires are roasted, there's damage on the car, they're going to get a bill for that. So if we appraise it knowing all of those things to be true, we can then, if we use this number, all of that goes away. There's no turn-in inspection, no mileage penalties. So sometimes you might look at, okay, the remaining payments, but then I add in the mileage penalty and I add in what I think you have in damage. And you know what? We're actually better off going this route.
Is that because this is a lease turn-in versus us purchasing the vehicle?
Correct. Any scenario other than this right here, this is, you're paying off the car. You own it now. Everything else is some form of a lease turn-in.
Giving it back to Mercedes.
Exactly. It's just which of those options works best. But even if it was a BMW dealer and they were looking at this number here and they're like, hey, you know what, let's just factor in your remaining payments and your turn-in fee and we'll cut you a check for that and you just go turn it in.
Yeah.
But if he's over miles and has a damaged car, he's still going to have a turn-in bill coming down the road. All right, so this is what we're going to work with, 5211, which is much better than 9. Depending on what he's willing to get into, we have some options. So my recommendation to you at this point would be to tell him your $5,200 in payments that we have to work with and include in the deal. That's going to be about $165 a month. So if did you say 900 was his max?
Yeah.
We probably don't have to go all the way there if he's open to a demo.
He's open to demo C-Class,
Okay,
which I think we've got a couple that can get him there.
we do. So if we've got demo C-Class that's at like $650 a month,
Yeah.
then before you add the trade-in, you know that we're going to be, whatever payments you're seeing, we're immediately adding about $160.
How do I include this in fee?
What I would do if I were you is when you go to add the trade, value 0, pay off that amount there.
Okay.
That's the cleanest way to display it. Definitely have options for him.
Okay.
So where does he live, by the way?
Rhode Island.
Okay. And because we're not, okay, great, so he's got Amex. Because this will be a lease return, because we're not buying the car, we can avoid the double shipping. He can just turn it into his local dealer,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
He can just turn it into them. That way, we're only setting up shipping of the new car to him.
Okay.
Shipping to Rhode Island's going to be $500.
Cool.
Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, brother.
Yep.